South of Midnight from Compulsion Games, the studio that brought us We Happy Few, has created an action-adventure game full of heart, lore from the Deep South, and one of the most ambitious offerings from Xbox-acquired studio. Finally ready to prove their worth, let's take a look at South of Midnight. This is Colteastwood. Thank you so much for checking out this preview. If you end up enjoying it, let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified of new content, and let's look at Compulsion Games South of Midnight. Special thanks to Xbox and Compulsion Games for allowing me hands-on with South of Midnight. South of Midnight is an action-adventure third-person semi-open world game that mixes three pillars of gameplay loop: traversal, exploration, and melee-based magic combat. You play as Hazel Flood, a young woman who is separated from her family after a massive flood in the southern bayou, who soon finds out that the world is much more dangerous and magical in a lucid, colorful-like dream. South of Midnight is presented in a cinematic, stop-motion style rendering, which can be turned off so that you can play the entire game at full 60 FPS on Xbox Series X, which is what you're seeing right here. The entire world looks handcrafted, and it's very colorful and brightly beautiful. Movement playing as Hazel Flood is fairly fluid, with jumping, floating, and parkour elements that can be leveled up by exploring in the open biome and looking for upgrade wisps hidden around the corners and hard-to-reach locations. One of the main pillars of South of Midnight is melee-based combat that is enacted with Hazel's weave. The combat is fairly solid for a AA style game, and one issue I had immediately was the predetermined combat arena location. Hazel will walk into a curtained off area and enemies will spawn in, and you'll fight them using a mix of heavy and quick melee and a dash dodge to avoid enemy strikes. Once an enemy is down, you can rip the soul from these creatures, and when every last enemy is defeated, combat is over and flowers and vegetation overtake the inky scourge, giving you a sense of healing the land as you go along. While in open world exploration gameplay there isn't much combat other than the traversal challenges and light puzzles, most combat seems to be set inside these fighting arenas. The interaction with other humans and otherly human creatures is a massively creative touch. The tone of South of Midnight pulls upon ancient southern lore and voodoo-inspired mythos.
You find your mama yet?
How do you know about my mama?
There is also a beauty to the bittersweet feel as Hazel is trying to help people in her community and find her way back to her family as she reaches in across the veil to see memories of people who have been affected by the devastation so she can find her way home. There is a great verticality and puzzle-based parkour system that will upgrade along the way, and here we only had access to one chapter, which was Chapter 3. Early on in the game, with just a few combat mechanics, you'll get a traversal double jump, wall running, and a parasol floating mechanic that felt really great and allowed me to jump and land exactly where I needed to. One complaint with the traversal I have is that you can use a power to materialize platforms so you can reach longer jumps, but Hazel cannot use this power while she's in mid-air, so she has to be on the ground, which means you can't chain together really great creative traversal mechanics. Combat can be fairly challenging since you don't have a parry system. You have to be aware of the visual and sound design that shows to dodge enemies just off camera or watch for clues that they are making a big area of effect attack. And one crunch I leaned on early was pulling the soul from downed enemies allowed enemies to not be able to attack you while you were pulling the soul, and that also regenerates some of your health. And the fact that all this combat takes place in one predetermined place, only when the game says it's time to fight, steals away some of the magic of this open-style biome world. In-game cutscenes may look like they're running at a lower frame rate, but this visual presentation, which cannot be changed for cutscenes, is an animation technique called on-twos. And this is a very common thing in claymation and stop-motion movies. This is a design choice that Compulsion made that I didn't mind at all, especially for the cinematics, as it felt like I was watching a high-quality Tim Burton movie, And the rendering style of each of the characters and the way they are modeled is a visual treat amongst hundreds of games we play every year that shoot for photorealism. But the gameplay and the camera are all set to run at 60 FPS if you want. And in gameplay for me, this made South of Midnight feel like a playable, stylized movie. There is an upgrade system that allows you to increase Hazel's combat effectiveness or speed up health recovery, but since this was such an early part of the game in preview, I can only expect that we'd have abilities outside of the melee weave and the dodge dash. This preview was lacking any major big set pieces or boss battle moments, but we've seen those in the footage that has been provided by Compulsion Games in late last year, with Hazel fighting a gigantic cursed crocodile. But even in those moments where I was just traversing treetops, jumping over flooded locations and cutting through abandoned homesteads, I was treated to a visual, wonderful presentation of color splashes, bright, warm, soaking sunlight, and the rumblings of a Southern folk and blues soundtrack that was persistent throughout my playtime.
Easy to blame Benji, my mother's favorite son. For her and my family, my plan had begun.
The traversal and puzzle-like exploration, along with the narrative dialogue that is provided by a gigantic catfish, and Hazel's own propensity to talk to herself out loud, carries the story that made the short preview, which lasted me about 30 or 40 minutes, a good window into what South of Midnight has to offer. I'm still cautiously optimistic that the traversal will stay fresh and those combat segments will ramp up in excitement with more tools at my disposal, but from what I saw here, it's promising and keeps me just at bay from being overhyped. Compulsion Games has been able to deliver some really creative and outside-of-the-box games that fans have loved, but I haven't always resonated with those games. But South of Midnight is more in line with something I could be excited about. South of Midnight is releasing April 8th, 2025, and I was grateful to have hands-on time with this, and I'm excited to see what improvements come with the full game, full access, and this gigantic creative world. I can't wait to see how the story kicks off and where it'll take us in this corrupted, cursed, and beautiful Southern Bayou. This is Colteastwood. Thank you so much for checking out this preview. Such a short time. They said I had an hour and a half with South of Midnight. It actually took me about 30 or 40 minutes. And like I said, I've been cautiously optimistic about this game. I want it to be really great, and it's in line with that third-person action-adventure game that I typically enjoy. And thanks again to Xbox and Compulsion Games for giving me this opportunity to play the game and give you my thoughts. I'm looking forward to just one more month until the game comes out, and I guess everybody will get a chance to see what South of Midnight has to offer for us. If you ended up enjoying this video, let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified of new content. If you want to further support what we're doing here on this channel, you can hit the join button below. That'll get you early access for videos, monthly merch giveaways, and so much more. Also, check out the Patreon if you want to support the channel. We got several tiers there so you can show your support. Check us out in the XNC podcast, where Mag and I will be talking about South of Midnight. We'll be talking about other games coming up. We've got Avowed on the way. We've got Doom, the Dark Ages. It's going to be a really busy and packed spring. So many games. Let me know what you think about South of Midnight. If it excites you, in the comment section. And while you're there, as I always say, please be nice.